Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS NBA Wednesday. Got a bunch of games on the board, bunch of college basketball games on Wednesday as well. Pretty loaded basketball night. As far as Tuesday night, nope, not a good one. Well, I mean, I think my bets went 2 and 4. I shouldn't have split Georgetown up. I put some on the money line. I should have just taken the plus 8.5. It was one of my favorite bets of the day. Had I done that and not sprinkled the money line, it really wouldn't have been that bad because my favorite two bets hit. The Georgetown and the Sixers -1. Man, the Bulls team total under. What a terrible handicap. Not even close. I mean, the Bulls came out scoring. The second half, they literally couldn't stop scoring. Not even close on that one. And the Rockets, I'm surprised by that. I like that Rockets -9 pick. Closed at 10.5. I thought it was a great bet. The Nets without Ben Simmons had been an auto fade. Another one where it just wasn't even close. Nets were pretty much winning. Well, actually, I shouldn't say the whole game, but the Rockets never really extended more than a 5 to 7 point lead. So just a bad bet there. So yeah, not a good Tuesday night. Let's get back on track Wednesday here. A lot of action on the board. Let's do it. I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up, we got Milwaukee on the road in Charlotte. Hornets are catching 8.5 points or 9, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 217.5. Score projection for this one, 111 to 113 Hornets. That's because I weight my model heavily to the last 5 games. Probably not the best way to do it, but that's the way I like to look at the numbers. You can see the Bucks in the last 5 games, 30th in defensive rating, 17th offensively. 5 games is not a huge sample size, but it is significant to see them dead last defensively in the last 5 games. In the last 10 games, they're 10th offensively, 18th defensively, 16th in strength of schedule. The Hornets 24th, 9th, and 27th. Injuries on the Milwaukee side. We got Lillard and Giannis both listed as questionable. Obviously, we need answers on this before we place a bet. We need to know if these two guys are going to be out there. As of right now, they're both listed as questionable. On the Charlotte side, as I'm sure you know, Hornets are dealing with all kinds of injuries right now. Still no LaMelo Ball. Still no Brandon Miller. Okogie is still out. Cody Martin listed as doubtful, so probably not getting him back as well. So yeah, Hornets are riddled with injuries right now. So let's get into this one, and we'll start with the Bucks' recent struggles. They were on a little bit of a hot streak there, but in their last 4 games, 0-4 straight up, 0-4 against the spread. You can see on the right side of this graphic, in the previous 11 games, they were looking just fine. 9-2 straight up, 8-3 against the spread. Now, one of these, the most recent game against Oklahoma City, none of their starters played, but still, they had lost 3 in a row before that, and specifically the defense. Now, again, one of these games was against Oklahoma City, and they rested everyone. There was no Lillard. There was no Giannis. I don't even think Brook Lopez played in the game. So one of the 4 data points in this graphic here is irrelevant. But still, I mean, this is the last 4 games. They have a defensive rating close to 129. That is terrible. The Bucks defense has looked really bad over the last 4 games. Milwaukee also hasn't looked very good on the road. In their last 10 road games, 3-7 against the spread, 4-6 straight up. Now, the good news for the Bucks is the Hornets aren't really doing shit at home. They're 3-4 against the spread, 1-6 straight up. That's on their current 7-game homestand. This will be the 8th consecutive home game for Charlotte, and they're currently 3-4 against the spread on the homestand. The story with the Hornets, as I'm sure you've probably heard me say, they can't score without LaMelo Ball. In their last 5 games without LaMelo Ball, they have a 103 offensive rating, effective field goal percentage under 46%. In their last 5 games with LaMelo Ball, night and day difference. We're talking about 14 more points per 100 possessions here. Offensive rating over 117. So this Hornets offense, night and day difference here. You cannot trust Charlotte to score points when LaMelo Ball is not on the floor. Now, on the other side of the court, the Bucks have not had problems. In their last 10 games prior to the Oklahoma City game, because let's just not count that one. None of their starters played. In the 10 games before that, they had an offensive rating over 121, an effective field goal percentage over 58%. The Bucks offense has been cruising. Now, the Hornets defense, not nearly as bad as the offense. The Hornets defense without LaMelo Ball, I mean, it's fine. It's pretty much the same. In their last 5 games, they do have a defensive rating over 115. So, I mean, obviously that's not great. But on the defensive side of the ball, Charlotte really isn't that bad. You can see they got a game against Denver in there, the Clippers with Kawhi, the Lakers. So they've seen some tough offenses. They've also seen Brooklyn and Washington. So the Hornets defense, I'm not opposed to trusting them. They're okay. And this actually might be a decent matchup for Charlotte defensively. They've been very good pressuring jump shooters. In their last 10 games, they're first in defensive efficiency against the above the break three, fourth against the long mid-range shot. Happens to be two of Milwaukee's favorite places to shoot. So this actually might be a good matchup for the Hornets defense. It's just tough to fade the Bucks offense right now because the last 10 games, as we just saw, when they had their starters out there, they were scoring pretty much at ease. So it would have to be Bucks here. I can't trust the Hornets to score points. Am I going to lay 8.5 points with a team that's 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 road games and a team that seems to be struggling on the defensive side of the ball? Probably not, but if I was to place a bet, it would be Milwaukee next game. Cleveland on the road in Detroit. The Pistons are catching 5.5. I mean, this line's kind of all over the place because Cleveland just played. Total sitting at 235, somewhere in there. Score projection 116.2 for the Cavs, 113 for the Pistons. In the last 10 games, Cleveland is first offensively, 15th defensively, fourth in strength of schedule. Detroit 22nd, 10th, and 7th. Injuries on the Cleveland side. Obviously, we don't have a report yet. They just played, but here's their injury report from last night. Dean Wade and Okoro both ruled out. That's not new. They've been out. This is a back-to-back, so we'll have to see if anyone else is added here for Cleveland. On the Detroit side, it's just Jaden Ivey. That's not new. He's been out for several weeks now. Other than that, Pistons should be good to go. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this game. I don't really love these back-to-backs, especially when we have a lot of options to choose from. I will say on the season, Cleveland has not really had problems with 0 days rest. They're 6-4 against the spread, 8-2 straight up. And Detroit, when they do have the rest advantage, they're just 3-5 against the spread, 4-4 straight up. So I don't know if the back-to-back is really a problem here for Cleveland. The Cavs have not had problems with Detroit this year. They've played them twice. Both were double-digit wins, 113-101. That was on October 25th. 110-91. That was just, a week ago? A little over a week ago. I will say both of these games were in Cleveland, though. This is the Cavs' first time going to Detroit. Now, in that January 27th game on the road in Cleveland, Detroit was really struggling to score. They had an offensive rating below 96, an effective field goal percentage below 44. Terrible offensive numbers. We do have to take note, though, the Pistons offense has actually looked pretty good since then. Since that game in Cleveland, they've played 4 games. They have an offensive rating over 120. That's very good. And this is a Pistons offense that was struggling for a little bit there. When Ivy went down, they had like a 6 or 7 game stretch where they were really struggling to score. It looks like the Pistons are figuring out how to score without Ivy. Yes, you got a game against Chicago in there, Indiana, Dallas, Atlanta. So you do have to point out that they haven't really played any defenses. But this is the Cleveland Cavs on 0 days rest. I think the Pistons offense is going to surprise us here and get a little bit of revenge from the January 27th game. Do I think they'll win? No, but I do think they'll score. So I'm not opposed to betting a Detroit team total over here. I haven't bet this yet. I'll let you know on the live show, or if you're in the Discord, I'll post it when I bet it. As of right now, I got my finger on the trigger. I might bet the Pistons team total over in this one next game. San Antonio is on the road in Atlanta. The Hawks are catching mostly 4.5 here. Total sitting at 242.5. I see a couple 42s out there. Score projection 118.5 for San Antonio, 122.4 for the Hawks. In the last 10 games, both these teams are top 10 in strength of schedule. The Spurs are 3rd and the Hawks are 5th. Offensively, in the last 10 games, Spurs are 17th, Hawks are 27th. Defensively, the Spurs are 28th, and that's kind of the story here. When is this San Antonio Spurs defense going to come back? It's been gone for a while now. Hawks are actually 12th. Defensively in the last 10 games. Injuries on the San Antonio side, we got Chris Paul listed as questionable. De'Aaron Fox confirmed will make his Spurs debut here. So we're going to see Fox and Wembanyama on the court at the same time for the first time. On the Atlanta side, still the same injuries. Still no Jalen Johnson, no Bogdanovich, no Clint Capella. Trae Young is on the report, but he's listed as probable, so I would imagine he's out there. So let's talk about this matchup, and the Spurs offense is going to score points here. I mean, I know it's Fox's first game with the team. He's never played with these guys before. It doesn't matter. I mean, Atlanta can't protect the rim. In the last 10 games, they're 28th in defensive efficiency at the basket, 30th in the last 5 games. San Antonio is a team that likes to get into the interior and score at the rim. Then they add Fox. He loves to take those short little floaters. So, yeah, Spurs should not have problems scoring. And this is not a Hawks team that's playing good defense right now. In fact, in their last 3 games, their defensive rating is over 127. Opponent effective field goal percentage over 61%. So the Hawks have been struggling on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I know the Spurs offense looked a little shaky in the last 2 games. You got to keep in mind, Fox didn't play. Well, actually, Fox didn't play in both, obviously. Wembanyama didn't play in one of those. In the previous 4 games, the Spurs were actually scoring. Offensive rating over 121. So, I mean, I'm not overly thrilled with the Spurs offense. Fox's first game with the team, but Atlanta's defense is just so bad that Spurs are going to score points here. I mean, Fox and Wemby are probably just going to run a bunch of high screens, and Spurs are going to score points in this game. But before you go and bet San Antonio -4.5 here, you might want to take a look on the other side because Atlanta should be scoring points right back. In the last 3 games, the Hawks have an offensive rating over 120. They were struggling in the previous 8 games before that. And like I said before, the Spurs defense, what is going on here? In their last 11 games, since Jeremy Sohan got hurt, they have a defensive rating of 120. That is not good at all. You can see in the previous 11 games, they were playing great defense. Now, Jeremy Sohan's been back for, 5-6 games now. We're waiting for this Spurs defense to come back around. But in my opinion, we have enough data points where I think we might need to start handicapping this Spurs team as a bad defense because that's what they look like. And then you throw Fox on the court. He's never played with these guys before. I mean, in my opinion, there's not enough here to justify betting on this Spurs defense. They're going to have to show us. The Spurs defense, in my opinion, is a bad defense until they prove to us they're back. So Atlanta's been scoring. Spurs defense hasn't looked good. You throw Fox on the court, Hawks should be scoring points right back. So I know 242 is a super high total, and that may scare some people off. I found a 241.5 on FanDuel. I bet that. I bet the over. In terms of a side, I haven't bet this, but the Hawks as underdogs have been almost automatic. In their last 7 games as underdogs, in their last 7 home games as underdogs, they're 6-1 against the spread. In their last 9 overall games as dogs, 7-2 against the spread. So betting the Hawks as underdogs has been extremely profitable. So I definitely would lean towards the Atlanta side, but personally I thought the over was a better bet. So I bet the over at 241.5, lean towards the Hawks +4.5 next game. Memphis is on the road in Toronto. Looks like this one is at 7 now. Was it 6.5 before? So the Raps are now catching 7 points at home. Total sitting up at 243. Wow, super high total in this one as well. Let's take a look at a score projection here. 120.2 for the Grizzlies, 118.5 for the Raptors. In the last 10 games, neither of these teams have played a strong schedule. Memphis is 23rd in strength of schedule. Toronto's 24th. Toronto first in defensive efficiency in the last 10 games. You love to see it. 21st offensively. Memphis is 3rd offensively, 14th defensively. Let's talk about injuries here. Ja Morant is going to play. Well, we think Ja Morant's going to play in this one. We'll see. He is not on the injury report. No Desmond Bane. Marcus Smart might be back for Memphis. He's been injured for a while. He's listed as questionable. Brandon Clark also listed as questionable for Memphis. On the Toronto side, no RJ Barrett. I believe he has a concussion. Other than that, the Raps should be good to go. So I messed up the injury report here. I thought RJ Barrett was ruled out. He's actually listed as questionable. So apparently there's a chance RJ Barrett plays. Also, Jakob Poeltl just got hurt earlier tonight. So he's listed as questionable as well. So a couple question marks on the Raptors side. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this game. Toronto just got done playing a game against the Knicks. They lost by 6 on the season on 0 days rest. This is not including the Knicks game that just ended. They're 6-2 against the spread, 2-6 straight up. So they don't win these games, but they usually cover when they have 0 days rest. Meanwhile, Memphis, when they have the rest advantage, 5-5 straight up, just 3-7 against the spread. So they haven't taken advantage of these opportunities. That being said, Grizzlies are on a bit of a warpath right now. In their last 12 games, they're 10-2 straight up, 9-3 against the spread. In their last 6 on the road, 5-1 against the spread, 4-2 straight up. So if you've been betting the Grizzlies, you've been doing well the last few weeks. Now, you look, obviously, when you're looking at a Memphis Grizzlies game, you have to look at their opponent's transition defense, right? Because that's what Memphis does. They get out in transition, they run the fast break. They're first in frequency, 6th in efficiency, first in the NBA in points per game in transition. Now, you look at this graphic here, season-long numbers, the Raptors are just okay defensively in transition, 14th in efficiency. So you would think, okay, Memphis should not have problems getting out of the fast break and scoring on this Raptors defense. That being said, this Raptors defense is first in defensive efficiency in the last 10 games. And check this out. In their last 9 games, they're allowing a fast break percentage under 13% and great defensive efficiency numbers when they allow those fast breaks. So teams have not been able to run on this Raptors defense recently. I've been talking about it for a week and a half now. Toronto is playing some defense right now. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it might actually be a tough matchup for this Memphis Grizzlies team. And on top of that, this is kind of a weird schedule spot for the Grizzlies. I mean, you got this weird road game against Toronto, an Eastern Conference team. After this, they have 3 huge games in a row: Oklahoma City, at Phoenix, at LA. Now, they do have 2 days off after this Raptors game, so I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call this a look-ahead spot or anything like that, but it's definitely not one of Memphis' more important games of the year on the road in Toronto. I definitely wouldn't lay the number. Maybe it moves up high enough and I take a shot on the Raptors. Like I said, they're 6-2 against the spread on 0 days rest. They've been profitable. So, I mean, if I can get a +8.5, +9, maybe I play on Toronto. It'll be Toronto or pass here next game. Washington is on the road in Brooklyn. The Nets are laying 1 point at home. Total sitting at 216.5, 217, somewhere in there. Score projection for this one: 105.9 for the Wizards, 112.9 for the Nets. In the last 10 games, these two offenses are 29th and 28th. Defensively, the Wizards are 21st, the Nets are 11th. Strength of schedule: Wizards 19th, Nets 6th. I am not going to spend a ton of time on this one. Same injury report for the Wizards, so it looks like we're going to see the same Wizards lineup that we've seen for the last 2 games. And this is a Wizards team that's on, dare I say, a winning streak. They've won 2 games in a row. They've covered 2 games in a row. This is coming off 16 consecutive losses. So, I mean, I really don't know what to do here. I also don't know who's going to be out there for the Nets. They obviously just finished a game against the Rockets. They won. Ben Simmons didn't play in that game against Houston. I don't think he's going to play in this one either. We know how bad the Nets are without Ben Simmons. I think they were 2-9 against the spread in their last 11. They went out and beat Houston though, so I don't know. This seems like a crazy game to try to bet. I would say if Ben Simmons plays Brooklyn, if not Washington, but I can say pretty confidently that there's 0% chance I put any money on this game. Next up, Miami on the road in Philly. The Sixers are catching 1.5 at home here. Total sitting at 216 or 216.5, depending on your sports book. Score projection: Miami 103.2. Philadelphia 108.5. In the last 10 games, the Heat are 25th offensively, 20th defensively, 9th in strength of schedule. Philadelphia 8th offensively, 30th defensively, 1st in strength of schedule. So Philly has played a tough schedule as of late. Injury reports for the Heat. I don't know what happened to Duncan Robinson tonight. I didn't watch a ton of the Heat Bulls game. He only played 11 minutes. He's listed as questionable, so we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, no Jimmy Butler, no Josh Richardson for the Heat. On the Philadelphia side, as usual, there's a lot of Qs on this graphic, but good news for Philly. Eric Gordon may be back. Paul George may be back. Kyle Lowry may be back. Quentin Grimes might be making his debut with the Sixers. Andre Drummond might be back. And more good news, Joel Embiid is not playing. Now, I say good news. I know he had a 30-point triple-double. I know what the box score says. I watched every minute of that Sixers-Mavs game, and look, straight up, the Sixers were worse when he was on the floor. And look, it's his first game back. This isn't an Embiid bash session or anything like that. I was cursing him out throughout the night, but like just because I had money on the game, it wasn't serious. I was just pissed off. Like I said, it's his first game back. Let's not overreact. But the fact that he's out kind of increases my confidence with this Philadelphia team. Keep in mind, they covered 6 in a row before Embiid came back. And technically, if you bet Philly early like I did and got the -1, they covered again. So if you bet early, they've covered 7 in a row. Catching points at home with no Embiid, Sixers should score a lot of points. You also got Miami in a back-to-back coming off the Chicago game. I'm on Philly. I took the +1.5. Let's do it. Ride the Sixers wave. Next game. Chicago on the road in Minnesota. The T-Wolves are laying 10.5 or 11, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 226.5. Score projection for this one: 119.8 for the Wolves, 110 for the Bulls. In the last 10 games, the Bulls are 26th offensively, 16th defensively, 20th in strength of schedule. Minnesota 6th, 8th, and 12th. Injury report is same for Minnesota. No Dante DiVincenzo, no Julius Randle. To be honest, I'm not spending any time talking about this game. I don't even know who's going to be out there for the Bulls. I had Bulls team total under 113.5, and they lit the Heat up last night. So I don't know what's going on with this Chicago team. I really don't have a feel for either of these teams. Just going to pass on this one. Next up, Golden State's on the road in Utah here. The Jazz are catching 6 points at home. Total sitting at 228.5. Score projection 113.3 to 109.8 in favor of Golden State. In the last 10 games, offensive rating, the Warriors are 19th, the Jazz are 23rd. Defensively, 23rd for the Warriors, 26th for the Jazz. Strength of schedule, 15th for Golden State, 21st for the Jazz. Injuries in this game. Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins both are on the report, but both are listed as probable. I would imagine we'll see both those guys out there for this one. Moses Moody is listed as questionable. Still no Kuminga. On the Utah side, no Colin Sexton. He left last game. Was it the Pacers game? I think it was the Pacers game. He left early. He's been ruled out. So Sexton's not going to play in this one. Lauri Markkanen is also on the report, listed as questionable. Just when the Jazz got healthy, Markkanen is now back on the injury report. And speaking of Utah being completely healthy, we finally have a couple of data points here because this team's been dealing with injuries all year. And check out the rebounding rate. Over 81% on the defensive side, over 32% on the offensive side. The reason I'm pointing this out, because you might be like, 2 games, who cares? The reason I'm pointing this out, if you remember, the Jazz were an excellent rebounding team last year when they were fully healthy. This year, we just haven't seen them healthy. Now that they've gotten healthy, we're seeing them start to rebound the ball again, and Golden State's trending in the wrong direction there. In their last 3 games, terrible rebounding performances. And look at the opponents. Oklahoma City's a bad rebounding team. Phoenix, I guess they're a little better now with Nick Richards. Still a terrible rebounding team. Orlando's okay. They're an average rebounding team. But 3 games in a row where Golden State did not rebound well. So coming into this one on the road in Utah, if Lauri Markkanen's out there and this Jazz team, this Jazz front court is going to be healthy, Utah should win the rebounding battle here. And we've seen back-to-back bad offensive performances from the Warriors. They were terrible in the Magic game. I felt lucky to get that cover, the -2.5 against Orlando. They were awful. Their first quarter was unwatchable, this Golden State offense. A 105 offensive rating in the last 2 games. And remember, Draymond Green is back in the lineup now. Now, this Warriors team is better when Draymond Green plays, but the offense isn't. The offense drops from a 1-4. This is the last 10 games with Draymond versus the last 10 games without Draymond. Offensive rating without Draymond, 114.3. It's a 111 with him. So the offense actually drops a few points. It's the defense that gets significantly better when Draymond plays. So although the Warriors are better when Draymond's in the lineup, the offense is actually a few points worse. And we've seen Utah. Remember, we only have a few data points with this Utah Jazz team healthy, and you will never hear me say this Utah Jazz defense is good. But they did play back-to-back good defensive games out there fully healthy. A defensive rating under 103 in their last 2 games. Now, one of those games was against Orlando, and the Magic offense is next level bad right now. The other one was against Indiana. We did see Portland shut down the Indiana offense, so maybe the Pacers offense starting to slump a little. We'll have to talk about that. But we have seen this Jazz defense play back-to-back good games. Again, by no means am I saying, hey, the Jazz defense is going to show up here. But Golden State's offense is worse with Draymond. Really hasn't been all that good. I doubt we're going to see Golden State just light it up here like we've known teams to do against this Jazz defense. Golden State's offense just isn't that good. Not to mention, this is not last year's Utah Jazz defense. If you remember, they were the worst three-point defense in the NBA by far. This year against the above-the-break 3, 13th in defensive efficiency, 17th in the last 10 games. Same thing for the corner 3, 7th in defensive efficiency on the season, 9th in the last 10 games. So they've done a better job against three-point shooting. They still allow a lot of shot attempts out there, so Golden State's going to get some shots off, but Utah hasn't really been lit up on the three-point line this year like they have been, like they were last year. So again, I know it sounds crazy, but I think Utah's defense can hold their own a little bit in this game. I mean, like I said, Golden State's offense really hasn't been that good, and it's been a few points lower in terms of efficiency per 100 possessions when Draymond Green plays. So I don't think Golden State's going to light the Jazz up like that. Now, on the other side of the floor, we have seen the Jazz offense look slightly better. I'm saying slightly in the 3 games since getting healthy. Offensive rating over 112, effective field goal percentage over 56%, compared to 108.5 and 52.1% in the previous 10 games. So now that Utah is healthy, we're seeing the offense come around a little bit. Not saying this Jazz offense is good, and it's only been a few games. They definitely look better now that they're healthy. Utah loves to take those short little mid-range shots. They're 3rd in frequency, 7th in efficiency on the season, 2nd in frequency in the last 10 games. That actually plays into the weakness of this Golden State defense. They've got terrible defensive numbers there. The thing with that, want to know who takes the most shot attempts from that zone? Colin Sexton, over 4.7 attempts per game, those short little mid-range shots. He's not playing in this one, so I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling here. I want to take the Jazz. I want to grab a +6.5. I probably would bet it if I knew for a fact Markkanen was going to play. Don't want to be stuck with a +6.5 if he doesn't, but I just can't see a world where Golden State is laying more than 2 possessions on the road right now. They look truly terrible. Like I said, I felt so lucky to cash my Warriors ticket against the Magic. So, I mean, maybe I end up betting the Jazz. If I know Markkanen's going to play, I'd be down to take a +6.5. So, Jazz +6.5 for pass next game. Phoenix on the road in Oklahoma City. The Thunder are laying 12 in this one. Total sitting at 226.5. Score projection, Oklahoma City 117.6. Phoenix 108.1. In the last 10 games, strength of schedule, the Suns are 25th. Oklahoma City is 18th. Offensive rating 14th to 5th. Defensive rating 13th to 3rd. So the Suns don't have the worst looking efficiency numbers in the last 10 games. They've just done it against a really easy schedule. They're 25th in strength of schedule in their last 10 games. Injuries, Kevin Durant listed as doubtful. Most likely no Kevin Durant in this game. Obviously, that's huge. On the Oklahoma City side, they're still missing Wallace. Obviously, no Chet Holmgren. Jalen Williams, who missed their last game, he's listed as questionable. They are getting Alex Caruso back, which is huge on the defensive side of the ball. Now, speaking of the defensive side of the ball, let's look right here at Phoenix, because you would think the Suns' offense falls off without Durant, and there is a drop on the offensive side of the ball. But check this out. In their last 10 games with Kevin Durant, they have a defensive rating of 113.6. In their last 10 games without Durant, 121.3. So it's actually the defense that falls off. Now, this is just a 20-game sample, not a crazy sample size here. But the Suns' defense actually falls off without Kevin Durant. The Suns are playing their best basketball in the half court. Look at the defensive side of the ball. That's the bottom left of this graphic. 9th in defensive efficiency in the half court. So the Suns like to set up both on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. The reason that's a tough matchup, on the offensive side of the ball, Oklahoma City is first in the NBA in defensive efficiency in the half court. So they're going to try to set up and run a half-court offense without Kevin Durant against the best half-court defense in the NBA, who just got Caruso back. And also, on the defensive side of the ball, Oklahoma loves to push the tempo. They love to get out in transition. They're not going to let the Suns' defense set up in the half court. And check this out. Turnovers. The Suns are having turnover problems. In the last 10 games, they're 21st in turnover rate, 30th in the last 5 games, which even adds to their problem of Oklahoma City getting out in transition. They're going to be ripping turnovers. Nobody rips more turnovers than the Thunder, so they should be able to force plenty of turnovers, get out in transition. Suns defense isn't going to be able to set up in the half court. I like the Thunder to score. The Thunder have been having some defensive problems here and there, but A, getting Caruso back should fix that, and B, I'm just taking the team total over. OKC's team total sitting at 119.5. I took the over. Now, if you are looking to bet aside ATS here, I can show you the Suns' offensive numbers. They definitely drop off without Durant. I used that same sample size last 10 games with him, last 10 games without him. Offensive rating drops from a 115 to a 112. So not as dramatic as the defensive drop-off, which is kind of crazy. But check this out. Their last 10 games without Kevin Durant, 2-8 against the spread, 1-9 straight up. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be down to lay the points with Oklahoma City as well, but I just went with the team total over. OKC team total over 119.5. I'm not mad at Thunder -12 either. Next game. Orlando is on the road in Sacramento. The Kings are laying 5 here. Total sitting at 218.5. Score projection, Kings 110.8. Magic 106.9. In the last 10 games, the Magic offense has been rat shit. They're 30th in offensive rating in the last 10 games, 22nd on the defensive side of the ball. That's against the 22nd strongest schedule. So they're putting up terrible numbers, and that's not even against a strong schedule. Meanwhile, the Kings are struggling on the defensive side of the ball. You've probably heard me talk about that. They're 29th in defensive rating in their last 10, 13th offensively, though. So the Kings have been scoring some points, and they've played a much stronger schedule than the Magic have recently. Injuries, still no Jalen Suggs. When is this guy going to play? He's listed as doubtful. They keep throwing him on as questionable, and then they keep downgrading him to doubtful. Looks like we're going to see no Suggs in this one. On the Sacramento side, we are going to see, or we are most likely going to see Zach LaVine make his debut with the Sacramento Kings. Other than that, Kings are in pretty good shape injury-wise. So we're going to get our first look at this new Sacramento Kings team with Zach LaVine. Now, as far as matching these two teams up on the court, Like I said, the Magic have been pretty awful, but we do have to give them some credit. They do a good job rebounding on the defensive side of the ball. They also do a great job forcing turnovers. On the season, they're second in forced turnover rate, fourth in the last 10 games. So even with the injuries, even through the slump, they're still forcing turnovers. The problem with that is the Kings protect the basketball. Kings don't turn it over. They're third in turnover rate in the last 10 games. So one of Orlando's only strengths may be negated in this one because the Kings don't turn the ball over. Now, if you are trying to bet the Magic in this one, I guess you could point at the fact that they have been better since Franz Wagner returned. I mean, not much better. A 101 offensive rating in the last 5 games since he's returned compared to a 98.5 in the 4 games before that. I mean, the defensive rating actually sees a pretty significant jump, a 121.4 in the 4 games before Wagner came back, 113.9 in the 5 games since he's returned. That being said, I mean, you do have to look at the opponents. They haven't played the strongest. It's not like they're seeing elite offenses right now, but I mean, still, let's give them some credit. I guess they're doing a better job on the defensive side of the ball. The problem is they just can't score. They can't score at all. In their last 10 games, they have a 100 offensive rating. That's Washington Wizards territory. That's Charlotte Hornets without LaMelo Ball territory. I don't know if they need Suggs back. I don't know what the problem is anymore. This team just cannot score points. They're 1-9 straight up, 1-9 against the spread in their last 10 games. I was just talking about it. I watched that Golden State Orlando game. The Warriors played absolutely terribly, still won the game because that's how bad the Magic are right now. The problem is I'm not jumping at the opportunity to lay 5 points here with the Kings. Zach LaVine making his debut with the team, and I mean, it's really the Kings defense. In their last 11 games, this is a serious sample size here, defensive rating almost up at 120. Now, part of me wants to say, who cares? This Magic offense is so bad, they could be playing the Iowa State defense. It wouldn't matter, they can't score. But I am worried about laying multiple possessions with a team that can't seem to stop anybody. It would only be Kings for me here. I have not bet this. Maybe I bet Kings -5, but that defense is just so bad. So yeah, Kings -5 or pass for this one. Live shows at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through every single game on the board. By the way, I skipped the Pelicans-Nuggets one. They already played. I accidentally skipped it, and then I was going to go back, and I said, fuck it. So I skipped the Pelicans-Nuggets game. We'll talk about it on the live show. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. Then click on Sauce. You'll see everything I got open right now. Let's have ourselves a nice Wednesday here. Please remember to bet responsibly. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me.